Two teenagers were killed in Dhaka a week ago after a bus plowed into them. The protest over the incident has brought Bangladesh's capital to a complete standstill. Now, the Bangladesh government has increased the maximum punishment for offenders to 5 years in jail, but it is too late, too little. What's important to note is who is protesting, why they are so angry, and now the anger has erupted on the street, and how brutally the authorities are responding to them.
This is how the streets of Dhaka have looked like for the past week. Roads chock-a-block with protesting students. They've gathered at street corners with placards. They've raised slogans and demanded action. And they have only one demand: make the roads of Bangladesh safer for the public.
The elected representatives manage all their expenditures with our tax money. There is no benefit from elections if the representatives are ignorant about our life security and are reluctant to provide us due services. We will continue the movement if our demands are not met immediately.
These protests have virtually paralyzed Dhaka, and the teenagers have a concrete plan of action. Dressed in their school uniforms, they've erected checkpoints across the city. And much to the embarrassment of the authorities, these teens are forcing the police and ministers to observe traffic laws and enforce them. In return, they are being beaten up and attacked.
They have beaten us with bamboos by kicking us and in various other ways. It does not matter. It won't affect me, but we want safe roads. Whatever is happening to us, let it be. It's not a problem for us. But we want safe roads. We want that in the future no one is killed under the wheels of buses or vehicles. This is what we want.
But what prompted these unprecedented scenes? On July 29th, 2 students were killed and 12 others were injured when a privately run bus plowed into a bus stop. The driver lost control of his vehicle while racing another bus to pick up passengers, a common occurrence in Bangladesh. Traffic laws are rarely observed in the densely populated country. Law enforcement agencies have also failed to ensure effective implementation of regulations. On an average, more than 4,000 people die in road accidents every single year in Bangladesh. Last year, over 7,000 people were killed in road accidents. And the incident 8 days ago seemed to be enough to mobilize the country's youth. Protests turned violent as police used force to disperse the protesting students. Some took to vandalism to prove their point. A few armed men attacked a car belonging to the United States Embassy in Dhaka. The American ambassador and her staff were unhurt, but the incident forced a stronger crackdown. A few offices of Bangladeshi political parties were also targeted.
They attacked party offices several times yesterday. Today, 4 to 5 protesters tried to do the same. We prevented them at that time and asked them to go back, but they didn't. Then we had to fire tear gas shells to disperse them.
Even assurances from the Prime Minister herself didn't cut any ice. On Sunday, Sheikh Hasina urged the students to call off their protests and go home. She said, and I quote, "I request all guardians and parents to keep their children at home. Whatever they have done is enough." She also went a step further, hinting at the possibility of these protests being more than just spontaneous anger, hinting at the influence of a third party. Hasina warned that the protests could be sabotaged, putting the safety of demonstrators at risk. Hundreds have been injured in police crackdown in the last 1 week. But these students seem determined, prompting questions about the possibility of a political hand backing the demonstrations. Be that as it may, the sheer numbers that these sustained protests make one thing clear, that Bangladesh has had enough. Bureau Report, WION.
And I'm joined by Shamsher Chaudhary, former diplomat from Dhaka. So thank you for making time for WION. And let me ask you this question. What do these protests signify? Is it only about road safety, or are they signifying something bigger, larger, and deeper in Bangladesh?
Well, I think initially, definitely, the immediate reaction of the students was to the incident of 29th July, which you have described in your own news report, when two young students were run over by a bus which was trying to overtake another bus. And this had become a common happenance in Bangladesh over the last few years. The bus drivers and owners have enjoyed a culture of impunity. There have been total disregard for law. Drivers without valid licenses have been on the streets, driving unfit vehicles. Some even say that many of the drivers are under the influence of the abuse of substance. So the anarchy which has been described on the roads is because of a combination of all this, and plus poor management and even perhaps corruption in the road transport system. So the protests are not just for this death of these two students, but I think it's an eruption of a long list of such casualties which we have mentioned in your own report. One thing for sure, I think it still prevails, that the protest, the basis of the protest, the main thrust of the protest enjoys huge public sympathy and support. Even parents were seen on the streets helping the children, and you have reported this very, very accurately, I must say. And that's why even the global media has picked it up. The thing is that today the government passed a new law in the cabinet, introducing tougher measures against the breakers of law on the street, and stricter rules or kind of implementation of existing rules on driving permits and road licenses. We hope this works. What is needed, that situation did indeed is serious, or was serious. The Prime Minister has, I think, called upon the students to go back, and I don't doubt her sincerity in this. What is needed, of course, is immediate and visible action on the ground, that fake licenses are no more a reality in Bangladesh, that vehicles do not go out without a valid driving permit, or the unfit vehicles, and that the people responsible for enforcing the laws and rules on the street, that the law enforcement, should do a much better job. Interestingly, and I must credit the Commissioner of Dhaka Metropolitan Police, when he, in a press conference, admitted very candidly that the students have opened their eyes. The students are doing things which the police them should do. So the police have admitted that it had failed in the past.
Mr. Chaudhary, Mr. Chaudhary, yes, you have made a very pertinent point. But is it like a Tunisian movement in Bangladesh, where a protest by a hawker actually galvanized the whole country and the regime changed? Because there are multiple perspectives on this issue. For example, a couple of foreign media houses have actually looked into these protests as some sort of a foreign hand, some sort of an outside hand in the protest. But how do you define these protests? Is it like a Tunisian movement? What explains the participation of children? I just saw the visuals. A lot of school children are participating in these protests, sir.
Yes, I think it is the participation of the students, young college and school students, that have given this so much traction and over such a long time. So, the Tunisian example, of course, is very, very different. The fact is that we have had in Bangladesh, where governments have changed through elections in the past. That, of course, was not the case in Tunisia over a very, 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 very long time. So I do not want to extend that far. I think the law that has been passed today will be implemented with total sincerity. The people, not just the students, I think public in general will like to see definite, credible change on the streets. I would not like to take it beyond that at this point of time. But yes, the traction is huge. The public sympathy still remains. And we have to see how the new law is implemented, how quickly, how effectively, and how neutrally.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. Thank you very much for joining us from Dhaka.